Hello all of my history-loving friends. I'm so glad you are joining me today. If this is your first time, this is a history channel. I basically do stories about things about history that interest me. And if you like history, especially American history, it's very possible you will enjoy this channel. I've been doing this about 6 months, and I'm starting to see a small but loyal group beginning to follow me and watch more of my videos, be more interactive, and that's really exciting to me. I have about, as of this moment, I have a little over 200 subscribers. I would love to see that number increase in 2022 and for this channel to get out to a lot more people. Liking the videos when you see them and will help the algorithm share them with a wider audience. Subscribing to the channel helps with that, as does watching for as long as possible. These are really important things for people who are creators on YouTube. I'm proud of the work I do here, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hi everybody, I'm here at Commerce. I'm standing along what would have been State Road in 1934. In this field would have been a mine. It was a milling operation where they broke up the rocks. There also would have been an operation over here. One was called the Lost Trail Mine and the other one was called the Crabapple Mine, and I don't know which one was on which side. There were also a lot of farmhouses along this road. There was a torrential storm that night. Bonnie and Clyde and Henry Methvin, who were still running from what had happened in Grapevine, pulled over somewhere along this stretch of road between these two mines and just waited out the storm. They slept in their car, and the police were notified of people in a big Ford sleeping in their car along the highway. The chief of police, Percy, took along the town constable, Campbell. Normally he would have done this on his own. It was assumed that these were people who had partied too hard and were sleeping it off, which would have been super common around here. Boyd wasn't expecting anything but drunks sleeping it off. But he took Cal along because it was a group of people. Now, Percy was a career lawman. He was pretty well trained, probably had never had a firefight before, but knew how to handle it better should he be in that situation. While Cal was not. He had been elected the constable, making $15 a week. His neighbors largely did this because he was a widower who was supporting 5 children. He was inexperienced, and he only ever really helped serve warrants and maybe occasionally help the chief from time to time. They pull up to this car full of these people, and they had been taking turns on and off all night. One would sleep, the other would stay awake. Henry and Clyde were taking turns all night, and Clyde was awake when he saw the police approach. As they approached, he quietly turned on the car and let it idle, and as they exited their vehicle, he floored it, trying to back the car up and get out of the ditch. Unfortunately, the mud was so heavy, the car immediately just dug deeper into the mud all the way up to the rims. They slid further into the ditch, and the car wasn't going anywhere, and probably initially the police would have found this somewhat funny. Cal then thought he saw a gun. He probably did, in all fairness, but Cal immediately pulled his weapon. When that happened, Henry and Clyde got out and started blasting with their BARs. Cal was killed instantly. Boyd had a superficial wound on his head, which knocked him to the ground, but he was only very mildly hurt. Clyde was determined that what happened in Grapevine was not going to happen again, so he immediately turned to Henry and he said, "Put him in the car, don't hurt him, don't do anything to him. We're taking him prisoner." Well, their car was good and stuck, and at all this noise, the people in these houses start coming out to see what's going on. And Clyde turns to them and he yells, "We've already killed one good man today. I don't want there to be any more, so do what you're told." So he had all of these people come and start trying to get the car out. The shootout happened around 9 a.m. and so people start driving by, and as cars come by, they make them pull over, get out, and start helping trying to get the car out. They only were successful after a man named Charlie Dobson pulled up in a truck and had a chain with him. They made Charlie get out of his truck, attach the chain to the car, and pull it out of the ditch. It took 45 minutes after the shootout to get their car unstuck. So they finally get unstuck and they are heading toward the Kansas border to get out of Oklahoma. They've got Boyd with them in the back seat with Henry Methvin. Clyde is driving and Bonnie is in the passenger seat. Boyd thinks he's going to die. He's been reading all of these stories about how bloodthirsty this couple is. He is pretty sure it's Bonnie and Clyde. They haven't gone very far when they have to stop again. This time they have to stop because of another vehicle with two farmers in it that is stuck in the mud just like they were. Clyde gets out, says, "We've just killed a man and we're being chased by the law." The farmers are intimidated. "That's great, I'm sorry, we don't want to die, but we can't get our truck out." So Clyde and Henry have to get out of the car and help move the truck out of the way. Boyd asks Henry if the man and woman are Bonnie and Clyde, and Henry tells him that they are. Boyd tells them that he's going to cooperate, he's not going to cause any trouble. Clyde's response to this, to try to intimidate him, is to tell him that it doesn't matter what you do, we're going to kill you. Which isn't true, because if Clyde was going to do that, he would have already done it. Bonnie starts to make small talk with him. Throughout the next day or so, as Boyd goes through this, he becomes very fond of Bonnie. She makes small talk, she's worried about the wound on his head. She makes Clyde stop, she gets out and she goes to a spring. She wets a piece of cloth and cleans up his head wound. She makes a bandage out of some excess cloth they have laying around. She asks Boyd that if anything happens to them while he is with them, if she should be killed, she asks him to please get the rabbit Sonny Boy to her mother. Clyde talks about the shootout in Joplin briefly and tells him that if the cops had just done what they should have, that nobody would have gotten hurt. And throughout the course of this, Boyd comes to believe that Clyde and Bonnie didn't intend to hurt anybody, and he thought that Cal's rash decision had gotten him killed and that no one would have been hurt had he not done that. They would have kidnapped both of them. But, Cal was inexperienced. It wasn't something he did for a living, and, a lot of the officers that Bonnie and Clyde encountered were like that. Toward the end of their journey, they become worried that Boyd's shirt is covered in blood from his head wound. So they go through their things and they find him a clean shirt. They give him a tie. They've bandaged his head. They give him Henry Methvin's jacket because Clyde's is too small for him. Boyd has $25 on him, but Clyde refuses to take it. Instead, he breaks into a gumball machine, and then they stop at a diner and get something to eat. They feed him, and then they let him go. He's been fed, he's been put in fresh clothing, his wounds have been attended to. He had to walk about 8 miles after that, but before he went, he asked them if there's anything they wanted him to tell the press. This was an opportunity to say something for their image, to maybe counteract some of the bad press they'd been getting. And the one thing on Bonnie's mind and what she asked him to do, she said, "Tell them I don't smoke cigars." Bonnie was thrilled when, indeed, all of the newspapers included the information she had told Boyd that she did not smoke cigars. Back in 1933, this building right here was a funeral home. Cal Campbell's body was brought here to be prepared for burial, and then it lay in state in his home. So let's head over there and see if we can find that. Okay guys, I found his house. I'm gonna turn around and just kind of get footage of it as we drive by. There is somebody living there, so. This was Cal Campbell's house, and so his body would have laid in state in here inside his home. In 1934, this would have been a very, very nice house. I'm here at the GAR Cemetery in Miami, Oklahoma, and I'm standing in front of the grave of Cal Campbell. As you can see, he had lost his wife in 1916, so he had been a widower for some time. He was 60, he hadn't turned 61 yet. Here's the grave of Percy Boyd. When you come to this cemetery and you get the history map, he is not on it. So if anyone is wanting to come here and find his grave, there is an office you can ask at, but there's the office right there. And so drive toward gate 2, which is right there. And he's right in line with the office here at the corner. There's a tree There's Percy. He died young, unfortunately. He was only in his 40s, just barely older than I am. I was told he went to work for the mines. He was only chief for a couple of years after the Bonnie and Clyde shootout, and then went to work in the office of the mines. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed this. Please join me next time. My plan is next to begin a series on Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper has had his due. I have decided to do a series about each victim. So there will be 5 episodes, one for each woman killed by Jack the Ripper, because they have basically been lost in the whole conversation about that case. And I think it's time someone talked about them. So I will see you next time.